Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for taking the time to join us for today's webinar. Will all retail journeys end up in the cloud? A few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session is being recorded and a replay link will be provided after. Questions should be submitted through the Q&A feature at any time during the webinar. Joining us today is our guest speaker, Emily Pfeiffer from Forrester and Nicholas Peltier from Diebold Nixdorf. Emily serves digital business strategy professionals and providers with a focus on technology that enables commerce. She is an expert in commerce, order management, and dropship technologies. Emily helps providers and practitioners anticipate the strategies, technologies, and priorities that will keep them relevant and ready for what's to come. Nicholas has been working with the software industry for over 20 years now and is currently the head of strategic software sales at Diebold Nixdorf. In this role, Nicholas leads the global business development activities for Diebold Nixdorf's retail software suite, and his focus areas include POS, loyalty and customer engagement, retail operations, and cloud-based software delivery. And at this time, I will go ahead and I will turn the presentation over to Emily. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks so much, Heather. Yeah, I'm psyched to be here. We have a lot to talk about today. It'll be a really fun journey through what's going on in retail and the technology that supports it all. So I like to start usually with a little bit of a state of the market and just kind of talk through what's going on with consumers today. So as we look across different countries, we can see that there are pretty significant differences in how consumers like to shop. When we asked how they've purchased or ordered products over the past 3 months, we can see that these, although they're the same top answers for the most part, they're really in a different order. UK and France consumers go to their computer first. China consumers start with a mobile app. In the US and Australia, they go in store first. But let's just take a little bit of a different view. So, when I talk to retailers, they say, what's the most important thing? What do I have to do? What should I prioritize first? Or what do most consumers want? And especially for international brands that are selling into lots of different regions, you can see the preferences with consumers really vary. In-store is number one in some countries. It's third in others. The mobile app is paramount in China, as it's been for a while now. It's just different shopping habits and different expectations that consumers have for how they're going to interact with a retailer. It's really complicated.
And Emily, if I may raise a first question to you on your previous slide, please. Well, obviously, the global pandemic has strongly influenced the shopping behavior of consumers around the globe in the last 2 years. Do you consider that this pattern that you are showing here is rather a post-COVID situation or still largely influenced by the pandemic?
Great question. We do still see some lingering pandemic-related behaviors. Consumers are still thinking about safety when they decide how they'd like to shop, when they choose a pickup option, for instance. They are still looking online more. And, there were some folks in retail and digital who thought that digital's spike during the pandemic would hold forever. Mm-hmm. We knew better. It definitely did leap us forward a bit, but it just, it didn't hold at that crazy high level that we thought that it would. It's a really different situation, I think, than many expected it would be. So yeah, some of this is still influenced by the pandemic, but we really know moving forward that in-store is still a really important piece of things, and we are still settling out, but we're not fully in it the way we used to be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. So, as we ask consumers why they purchase online, why are you still buying online instead of going into stores? UK consumers, these are their prioritized answers. Free shipping is most important. And usually, by the way, that's why anyone buys online is because, and for pickup, and especially that rather than going to stores, I want free shipping, I want a price comparison, I want it to be convenient. And to your point, convenience is all about safety these days, right? For folks who are still worried about the pandemic, convenience says, I want to know that I can safely retrieve the products that I'm buying. But convenience also means things like, I just need it in my hand as quickly as possible. I don't care how I have to get it. If I have to go to the store to pick it up, that's fine. Or it might mean I don't want to leave my home for this product. I just need it to show up. If it takes a few days, so be it. So convenience means a lot of different things, but many of the answers boil down to that. So here are UK consumers in order of priority. China consumers say, I want to purchase online because I need to compare prices. That's number one for me. I know that if I can look online, I can find a better deal and I won't be as limited. I find it easier to shop online. This is a very digitally enabled consumer. So it's simpler to shop online in that case. Free shipping, again, is really important, but the selection too. Think about how much more you can find online than the limited selection in stores. US consumers, I mean, everything is driven by that free shipping, and it's free delivery. It's the convenience of the free shipping again, but the price comparison comes back. So in the US, consumers are very cost driven in their shopping. They want to be able to compare and get the best deal. They want to make sure they're not paying for shipping if it's going to be delivered. And that convenience and ease, that's so important. Really, if you think about it, many of the answers boil down to some version of convenience. But here we see that product research and availability are farther down the list in the US. It's really more about what's simple and what saves me money. So these motivations for consumers, they're kind of all over the place. It's about what it costs, and that's the product cost, the shipping cost. Am I getting a deal? Do I feel like I got a discount? I was able to use a coupon. The convenience, which is all those different things we talked about. It's not just one thing. And it means different things to different consumers at different times. And then access, the selection, the availability, being able to do the research about the product in advance. Now, click and collect, which is another way of saying buy online, pick up, right? In the UK, we usually say click and collect. In the US, it's buy online, pick up in store, pick up curbside. The reasons for that specifically are avoiding delivery costs. And you can see these numbers, how many consumers said that was a reason in each of these regions, but also getting it the same day. So you could call it convenience if you want, but this is really a timing thing. I know that if I go get it, I will have it today. But many of the answers also boiled down to time savings. And I think this is so meaningful. The answers were things like, I don't want to go to the store if I can't be sure it's there. Or I don't want to go to the store and wander around looking for the item. So it's not just how soon will it come, it's a matter of my time and how I want to spend it. There's the convenience again. And let's not forget seeing an item in person. This is something that will pop up more later on in this conversation, but the ability to touch it and hold it and feel it. You know, in my last life, I was responsible for selling blankets online. That's really hard when no one can feel the product and it's all about how it feels. You know, perfumes and things like that, these things that are very driven by the senses, but really any product, people like to pick it up and hold it and feel it. So this ability to go in and check it out, realize what this means. This is not a consumer who's shopping in a store. This is a consumer who's bought the item already and has gone into the store to collect it. By seeing it in person and not having it delivered, that means they have the option to return it instantly, to say, oh, never mind, I've changed my mind. So that's something that retailers really have to keep in mind. It's a very important distinction. So retailers, they serve these motivations, these needs by managing operations. And it's so important to think about it this way because we talk all the time about experience, right? Customer experience, consumer experience, the shopping experience. And we think about, in a digital world, the front end website. In a retail world, we think about the store experience. But so many of the things that we've been talking about, so many of those needs and those motivations are actually served by the operational side of the technology. So think about this for your organizations. Who makes the decisions about pricing in different channels? Meaning the price on the store shelf, the price on the website, if you're a brand that sells into marketplaces, if you're a retailer that has other products that are served by other brands and suppliers on the website, who's making those decisions about pricing? Because I'll tell you that the vast majority, I think 77% of consumers told us they expect the same price for the same item in all channels. They don't expect those games, right? So sometimes this is different teams making these decisions. They may not be aligned at all, or we might intentionally be playing with price elasticity to see what we can get away with. Consumers don't want that. Is inventory availability exposed to online shoppers? So thinking about what they want from you and their expectations. They're shopping on a website. They want to see if it's available in the store. Remember, I don't want to go to the store if I can't be sure it's there. So that's an operational function, understanding the inventory availability in all the channels. Are we bringing that forward into the experience? Are many fulfillment options available, like ship to store, ship from store, pickup? Because even for a single consumer, that need of the moment is different depending on what they're shopping for and why they're shopping today. So look at these statistics. 72, okay, in the UK it's 72 and it's 77 in the US of consumers expect consistent prices between online and physical stores. Inventory wise, 63% of China consumers say, I want to look up the product availability before I go into the stores. I'm going to look online and see if it's there before I go into the store to check. And this is a very high number across the regions. In the US, a third of consumers say, I'm not even going to go to the store if I can't check to see if my item is available. So retailers will think sometimes, well, if they can't see the availability online, they'll come to the store to see if it's there. A third of consumers won't. If they can't check, they just won't come in. That's a huge, huge portion of shoppers. It's a little scary.
And Emily, on this point of the fulfillment options, we at Diebold Nixdorf are strong believers that the store is a key asset as it plays more and more the role of a fulfillment center in the context of offline to online journeys. Do you see those journeys ending up in the store rather growing, or do you believe home delivery is the direction for the future?
I just want to say yes to both. I think actually both will grow. So we had a poll question we asked consumers that they overwhelmingly said yes to. The question was, do you expect a variety of fulfillment options to suit your need of the moment? Versus do you have one favorite that you usually want?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, yes, we want a variety. And it's that experience of, and this is, again, retailers want to know just the one best answer because it's really hard to do everything. So just tell me, Emily, just, what's the one best thing to do? And I'm so sorry, but the answer to your question and theirs is we really need to do it all. And the store has to be a hub. It has to be a fulfillment hub, a pickup hub, as well as a place where consumers can walk in the door, experience the product, buy on a whim, right? It's really a mix of both. And I would caution retailers against trying too hard to make the upsell on a pickup order. It happens, but some consumers are so focused on the time it takes, right? Don't make me walk all the way to the back of the store to get my order. Don't make me sit in the parking lot. Right? Just because you want me to buy more things. I need to have an amazing experience for my need of the moment. And when I feel good about our relationship, I will come back.
Got it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. I wish there were simpler answers for these things, but it's please do all of them. So the consumer now is much more digitally empowered. China got there first, but this is really pervasive. They're savvy with their tech. They use their apps and their mobile devices to shop. They're used to it in a way they weren't. And the pandemic did kind of instigate that, to your earlier question, right? It created a situation in which People who might not have shopped in certain ways were. People were having doctor's appointments and exercise classes and all sorts of things online. My father bought his groceries online. That's a big deal. He likes to see the cut of meat and choose it himself. So for him to buy his groceries online was huge. But those things are now things that consumers have done online. And you can't have a first time again. They've now done that for the first time. Now it's a thing they do. So that sort of digital empowerment is much more pervasive. We do see safety as being equated with convenience, and we place a higher value on convenience than ever before. Now that we've had all of these options, we want to keep all of these options. We're more aware of supply chain realities. I have never heard the term supply chain so much from the non-retail, non-technical people in my life. There's really an understanding that we as a global community didn't have before. It's interesting. I also think some companies lean on it a little bit more than they should, but we are at least aware that this is something that challenges retail. And they expect lots and lots of fulfillment and delivery options with a variety of convenience, timing, and cost. So whatever that need of the moment is, we need to serve it, and we don't know what it is. So all of the options need to be there. There's also this pervasive theme that we've kind of seen across everything. Maybe because of 2020, maybe it was sort of amplified, but it's absolutely sticking with us today, which is the need for speed. Retailers had multi-year initiatives, things like adding curbside pickup, which if you'd ask them, I did ask them, how long would it have taken you under normal circumstances to launch curbside pickup? And they would say 3 to 5 years. We have to get approval and get the budgets in place and make a plan and figure out the tech and roll out the tech and train our associates on using it. They did it in a few weeks. Here in the US, it was almost instantaneous. There were buckets filled with cement and little signposts in them saying, park here for pickup, right? It was incredible. It was not a great experience, but they got it done and then they improved it. And that's really the definition of agility. They just moved faster because they had to. And retail as an industry had an epiphany altogether that if things are really that imperative, we can move that quickly. And so my challenge to my global retail community is, if that's true, what else can we decide is imperative? What are the other things that we can just say, we have to do it quickly and get it done? Vendors also implemented functions very, very quickly. I saw lots and lots of providers across POS and OMS and commerce just standing up new features and solutions and apps and interfaces to support retailers and brands during that moment. It was kind of beautiful to see everybody working together to get everything to market so fast. Larger platforms that would normally take a very long time to implement had quick start programs. It was probably limited functionality, but at least it shortened that time to value so we could just go live faster. And all around, we saw that agility, the go then improve idea, right? Just get it done, then make it better. It doesn't have to be perfect out of the gate, but just make sure that we don't forget the improve part. So I'd like to go into the future of commerce technology. This is a little bit of an adventure, and we're going to start with a brief history just to explain where we've been and where we're going. Commerce technology has evolved. This is a visual. If you remember your natural history, if we go back far enough, all of the continents on Earth were actually one big continent, and it was called Pangea. And Pangea was, like the original commerce solutions, all stuck together in one. In these early days, everything that was kind of digital commerce, e-commerce, it was isolated from the rest of the business. It was such a different way of doing things that it worked all on its own, and all or almost all of the functions that supported it were just sort of baked in together. You'd get the digital order, toss it over the wall to the ERP or back office accounting systems, and that was it. Everything that happened in the digital world stayed digital. This worked because it was so different and it was so new, but many different functions within this system were intensifying. They got more and more complex. They grew. And as they grew, they started splitting off into individual continents, their own pieces. So we had order management and content management and product information management and more marketing tools and all sorts of things that just popped off from commerce to become their own functional areas. And of course, this was very overwhelming. There was a lot to think about, so many moving parts. And so some very large software companies bought or built or combined many of these pieces together. And they said, no problem, I have an end-to-end e-commerce suite. And isn't it great that you can get it all from me as a benefit to you because you already know me and like me for this other product. So you'll love getting it all from me, and it's already pre-integrated and it'll be better, faster, easier, less expensive. But that was a really hard value proposition to deliver on. These companies were so large that the experiences that their customers had with them were often really different from one product to the next. If I said, how's your relationship with such and such software provider? They'd say, well, for which product? Because it's actually really different teams, different salespeople, different support people. And the integrations were just that. These were still separate systems that had been acquired. They were written on different code bases, different interfaces to log into, to work in them. They were just integrated, and other solutions competing pieces, those were just integrated too. So it wasn't actually better, faster, easier, or cheaper to use multiple solutions from the same vendor. And the market all at once kind of understood this and said, you know what, I am going to go out and get the best for me. I'm going to curate my own suite. And it's become really normal to expect that there are lots and lots of pieces that are served by many different vendors. And those vendors might be huge names with big suites in part. They might be large, heavy hitting solutions in certain areas, or they might be specialty solutions that just do one thing really well. And brands and retailers are just used to having these many different pieces. But of course, this is really complicated. And what's happened in the recent years is microservices-based technology, cloud-native technology, these ways of delivering the tech that make it easier to split, easier to swap out, and have really changed expectations. So let's talk about kind of where we're going with this and how retailers and brands are thinking about how they choose their vendors in the full picture of commerce technology. So start with the quote. This is what I hear a lot. I want my employees to do more with less. This was pre-pandemic too. We can't blame everything on the pandemic. Business leaders need their workers, their employees, their boots on the ground troops running the business day to day to have tools that will really enable them to work efficiently. They need systems that have workflows and approvals built in so that things are streamlined and not manual. They need to work in as few systems as possible. All of those separate UIs that were integrated, that doesn't help the business user. They still have to log into all these different places to do their job each day. Don't just give me analytics to tell me what happened. Give me actionable reporting to tell me what to do about it. And automate and optimize as much as possible to keep the business moving without my humans having to do it. And you can imagine now in some areas, staffing challenges are happening. It's really hard. And this is more important than ever. So these are considerations when choosing new tech vendors. I also hear this. I don't believe the value props of those suites of best-in-class solutions. I want to choose the best for me. And this is really showing itself lately, where we have so many very interesting and kind of unicorn and unique functions that are offered by other systems that are just not pervasive, maybe not pervasive yet, but not pervasive in the standard suites or larger solutions. So that's interesting. But we're also seeing this from larger vendors in the form of choosing just the pieces we need. Right? The old monolithic, here's everything, you get it all, is not really what's happening anymore either. We're really seeing this move toward toward modular technology. And if we do have multiple functions from the same vendor, we actually expect it to be faster and cheaper to add. It should not be a completely new implementation project if we're bringing it in from the same vendor.
Yeah, and I think you are so spot on with that, Emily. And that's also why standardization is key and becomes a pattern for many retailers, because avoiding too bespoke software is so much facilitating the integration that it's really worth, when adopting a new solution, to review the legacy business processes and to check if they can be matched with the standard vendor capabilities. There is a lot of benefits attached to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. This is really what we're seeing, that sort of appetite to experiment too, right? I'm just willing to try something else. And look, eventually I might need to consolidate again, but I'm willing to try in the meantime. And some of our larger brands that we speak with are seeing this. They've already done the let me try bringing in lots and lots of specialty solutions. And now they're saying, okay, Emily, help me consolidate again. It's too many moving parts. I figured out what worked. Which can I remove? And this brings us back to vendors that provide a very rich suite of solutions, or a very deep single solution, that brands and retailers are looking to them to provide more if they've proven themselves already, which is really interesting. So we're in a situation now, though, where we've got businesses who have been at this for decades, maybe even centuries, depending on who they are. In some cases, there's technology. I spoke with one major brand yesterday that told me about a solution they've had in place for 40 years without major updates to it. So commerce has been around now more than a couple of decades. And the companies that got to it early and were really on top of it might have had their solutions in place that long. We know that about a third of digital businesses are actually looking to replace their commerce solution at any given moment. We keep asking this question and getting the same answer. It's about a third. And some of them go through a vendor selection process. They choose what to move to, and they actually can't do it. They can't get approval for the project because it's too costly to rip and replace their solution. It's been in place for so long. It's so customized. They literally can't pull it out. And so what they have is this legacy tech, big rusty machine. I just picture this big honking thing in the basement that's been there for so long, and it has all these rusty pipes that are soldered directly. Is soldered right? Welded? I don't know, but directly hardwired, connected to back office systems. They've got bespoke pieces that they've customized and added on over the years. And it's just so embedded in the way they do business, it's basically impossible to extricate it. They know they have to update and modernize, but they can't pull that thing out. So what do? This is what they do. They make incremental changes. Businesses are moving their technology to the cloud. They're doing it in pieces incrementally. So software as a service, SaaS, it's replacing on-prem tech. It's replacing highly customized, deeply bespoke tech. About a fifth of businesses are telling us they plan to complement their commerce solutions with SaaS. Another fifth are saying we're replacing it, but they may have started with the incremental complementary process, and 2/5 are already there. So look at these numbers. Almost all of the vast, 80, 90 something percent, the vast majority of digital businesses are saying, yeah, I'm ready. I'm moving my tech to SaaS. I'm moving it to the cloud. But of course, you can't just pull over and swap it out, right? They have to change one tire at a time while they're speeding down the highway. It's really hard. And I feel for them. This is a huge challenge that they're facing. So our question here, right? The reason for our discussion today, will all journeys really end in the cloud? Is this where retail is headed? One way or another, most will. And you've seen with my data today that many already start there. So remember those click and collect preferences, wanting to see availability, being able to serve near real-time inventory availability on a website that shows what's in a physical store is impossible. I would say impossible to do unless that software is in the cloud. It has to be close to the customer. It has to be operating in milliseconds, right? It's not some old order management system that's processing batches overnight, nice and slowly because the order's already placed. We're talking about a consumer in the cart or on the product detail page in that moment where they might abandon. We have to serve it in milliseconds immediately and accurately. You can't do that without the cloud. We're seeing these operational drivers, right? Routing before the order. When will my order come? I want to know that before I place my order. That's cloud-based software that's giving you that answer. We're seeing more store systems, in-store systems moving to the cloud. Those components that enable transformation, in many cases, those big rusty machines are in-store solutions as well. And so these cloud components are kind of saving them. They're modernizing them by augmenting what's in place until we can sort of carve out enough pieces that what's left to replace is small enough to move. And it's all about the speed, right? Implementation and time to value are so much shorter with SaaS solutions. It also protects us from creating another rusty machine, because usually the core code is separate. It's protected with SaaS. So you can still customize what you need to, but you're not touching those things that need to update over time to keep you current. And it means we can make those updates without massive processes. It's being served in near real time. Thank you. Good discussion.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks, Nicholas. That was all fantastic information. Just some great things there. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the presentation over to our product manager for retail software, RJ Holderman. He's going to go ahead and moderate our Q&A portion of our program today. And I just want to remind everybody that you can submit your questions using the Q&A feature at any time. So, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. And if not, we'll follow up with you afterwards if there are any additional questions that we can't get to today. So thank you. Emily, I'm going to go ahead. RJ, are you all set?
All set here. Thanks. Thanks, Heather. And thank you, Emily, for this great presentation and for sharing your thoughts and research findings on this exciting topic. We got a couple of questions from the audience that I would like to ask you and Nicola to respond to. So first, Emily, maybe for you as an analyst who has researched this topic for quite some time now, what is your perspective on the store of the future?
Digital. It will be more like a phone. We know that consumers don't rely on store associates the way they used to. They believe they know better about products. Many, I think nearly half in the US of consumers told us that they would rather use their own device than a store associate or a store device to understand what's available in the store they're standing in, right? So they don't even want to ask someone, they don't want to use a kiosk. They want it on their own phone, store availability. So that experience of self-service, of digital empowerment, which we talked about, the in-store experience, it just needs to get closer to the digital experience. It doesn't have to feel like VR. It doesn't have to be filled with technology that, it looks like some future state. We just have to enable the consumer to be more empowered and have more control and to tie together the digital and physical channels.
Yeah, I fully agree with this vision. And let's say from my side, I don't see that there will be also one single pattern of store of the future. And there will still be multiple models depending on the segment, certainly also depending on the geography, on the store format. But I agree, Emily, there will be also some commonalities across these different variants. And first, you said it very rightly in your presentation. Store will have to reinforce its role of a privileged place of live consumer experience, where diverse customer services besides pure checkout will arise and develop. Second, the store will also have to play its role as a fulfillment center, we said it, and will be the point of convergence between the channels and certainly also the catalyst of online to offline journeys. And third, one trend that we see very, very strong growing is that the store is also a place of experimentation, where new business ideas must be able to be implemented very quickly and proved with real consumers. And in some cases, it will just be discarded, and in some others, it will be deployed massively. So these are the three key directions we see for the store of the future.
I love what you said about fulfillment. I think you're right. There's such an opportunity to see the crossover between the physical store location and all the ways that we fulfill. I get really excited. I'm a nerd, but I get very excited about things like consumers buying something online that's not available in a store or in the store near them, returning it to the store, right? And in the old days, that store would have to destroy it or maybe mark it down 75% and put it on a clearance rack. And
Yeah.
right. But that shouldn't be necessary. If we're fulfilling from store, it can go right in the back room if it's resellable, fulfill from there at full price, right? It's a really simple process if we're all plugged in and connected, as you said. Yeah, great point.
And I think regarding this development of different business services, I was discussing very recently with a fuel operator, let's say, and they have also to reinvent themselves in terms of customer experiences. And I have a very, very interesting and funny discussion at the same time, because he was thinking about, okay, I want to offer massage services, I want to offer hairdressing services in a service station. Yeah, I mean, I say this is pretty new, and all this will have to be tested and experimented first. So let's say, I think that this is really something growing and growing.
Thank you both. The next question we have here is more technology driven, and maybe then to start off with you, Nicolas, what you see as the most important criteria or let's say critical components of a future ready technology foundation? Okay, well, there are three main things which come to my mind, three cornerstones in this area. You know, we are talking daily with a lot of different retailers, different segments, different countries. But if I have to keep three, I think the first one, and Emily already highlighted that very, very, very rightly, speed, speed, and speed. Yeah, the pace at which innovation and the demand for new business services increases is drastic. And I would say the time which is needed between the ideation and the actual availability in the store must be as short as possible. And that's why, for us, newly designed software leveraging, for instance, microservices architectures, which allow for quickly composing new consumer or staff journeys, is key, as well as the cloud technologies, which drastically accelerate the time needed to deploy all these new ideas. The second cornerstone is certainly around simplicity. I mean, we are in a retail world where the ecosystems of solutions become more comprehensive, broader, and richer every day. And integration, technical integration, cannot be the same as in the past. I mean, let's say in this area, systematic usage of APIs, and preferably public APIs, which can be used by any party, any vendor, any partner, is a must to avoid the well-known, spaghetti effect that we know from the old days. And the third dimension which comes to my mind is certainly, it's a little bit linked to the previous ones, but it's certainly around flexibility, and I would say adaptability. It's true that most retailers look for standardization of their in-store systems. But let's face it, retail remains a world of personalization and where adaptations plays a huge role, because we have to accept that it is complicated to transform at once well-established business processes, and also because nobody can currently predict what the future will look like in terms of which journeys will be demanded tomorrow and which experience the consumer will look for tomorrow. Emily, what's your view on that?
That was great. I actually think we're really aligned. I developed a model called FIRE, which stands for flexible, inexpensive, rapid, and easy. So it sounds like we're singing the same song, doesn't it? You know, that this is aspirational. It's hard for technology to be all of these things. And in some cases, the most flexible architecture might be more expensive, not less. It might be more complex, not as easy. But if we think of all four of those factors, right, flexible, inexpensive, rapid, easy, as aspirational and the goals, then all together we can create ecosystems that will move us forward together, because we're all kind of prioritizing the same things together. I think flexibility right now and rapid, it was very hard to spell a word. Speed is a simpler word to use, but FIS wasn't as good as fire. Finding the flexibility and the speed is terribly important. And but I also, you said simplicity. I want to focus on that ease of use for the business user. I really think moving forward that complex systems that require developers every time we want to make a change, or that are just really hard to use, we're all just done with that. Business users are consumers. They're people who are comparing their experience to the apps on their phone every day. They're comparing it to Instagram. They're comparing it to their shopping, not just to other business systems, right? So we really need to kind of all together make sure that we're considering that business user, and retailers appreciate it. They have trouble holding on to staff. They certainly don't have time to train staff on difficult systems. So I agree with you. Huge opportunities there.
And you are once again spot on. I mean, let's say, and also what we see, for instance, especially thanks to the cloud technology, that now, let's say, well, there is not, let's say, a working space and a non-working space. I mean, every store manager can consult real time the progress of his sales per whatever department and whatsoever, anywhere he may be, in his car, let's say in the restaurant or wherever. And this is also this flexibility of where do I access my business services is also extremely important.
Yeah.
Thanks. Let's see, another question came in related to a topic that I think often leads to some confusion or turns into a wordplay by technology vendors, being cloud native versus cloudified, or delivering cloud native or cloudified software. So what is your take on this, Emily?
I have feelings. Cloud nativity is a really important term that I believe sometimes we in the market maybe choose to forget the definitions. You know, if I were born and grew up in Germany and then moved to the US, I would not be a native American, right? That's not how nativity works. And so cloudifying systems, moving them to the cloud, it's a good idea. It's really important, but it's not the same thing as a cloud native system. When systems were built in the cloud, born for that purpose, the technology is served differently. And technically they're both in the cloud, okay, but retailers and brands feel those differences. They feel them in the form of what it takes to implement the system or to make changes. They feel it in the form of how quickly it's able to respond, whether they're able to use just pieces of it, or if it's still just sort of a cloud-based monolith, right? It's really a different experience. Even if we take away the technical conversation, there are ways that brands and retailers feel those differences, and it's still holding them back.
Yeah. I cannot agree more to that. And let's say for us also in Diebold Nixdorf, cloud native versus cloudify makes a huge difference. And honestly, the option to cloudify our old software was on the working table when we considered to renew our entire, let's say, retail software portfolio. But considering the challenges of the retail world in the coming years, we finally and rather quickly opted for redeveloping our entire software stack in a cloud native way in order to properly leverage the full benefits of cloud technologies, and moreover, not to suffer from any legacy constraints that we could have in our old software. Because as you said it extremely well, Emily, everything can be put in the cloud, but there is a big difference in revamping and redesigning. You can always install a new powerful engine into an old car, but certainly if you do not have all the electronics which come along with modern cars, it's maybe not possible to use the utmost capabilities of your new engine. And in software, it's the same. Hosting an old software in the cloud will not necessarily make it easier to adapt, to maintain, to update, let's say, this software stack. So again, fully in line with you on that.
Thank you both for clarifying these two terms and the differences. So I have one last question that is in the list, and it's about risks and rewards. So listening to the both of you, transitioning your retail operations to the cloud seems like a smart and rewarding move. But typically rewards also come with risks. So Nicola, what is your take on risk versus rewards topic when moving your retail journey to the cloud?
Thanks for the question. That's my daily life, Ryan-Chan. No, indeed,
Good.
delivering mission-critical operations from the cloud, yes, bear benefits, but also some risks. Application availability, data security are often seen as risks, while speed of innovation, scalability, reduced IT expenses, and more effective collaboration can be seen as benefits. Well, when it comes to risks, we believe they can be mitigated first by working with reliable technology providers who offer an end-to-end cloud solution and use proven technologies, who can then ensure the maximum level of security, enable proactive monitoring of the systems, as well as the best elasticity or the best scaling and load balancing capabilities. But also the software itself. And in our business of retail, especially when we talk about checkout, offline capabilities is a big thing. And well, I would like to make it very, very clear here, cloud software does not mean that we cannot benefit from offline capabilities and to secure operations, even if the cloud services might not be available. And that's what we are doing in Diebold Nixdorf with our new cloud software portfolio.
Emily, how do you look at this risk and reward discussion?
Yeah, it's challenging because these are big asks of retailers, but if it helps, I think this is a sooner or later we have to deal with it kind of situation. So putting it off just makes it later. Bringing in cloud, making sure that our systems are closer to the customer, it's where we will all wind up. But I also see today so many opportunities to have technology in the hands of store associates that's constantly updated, that's really fresh and easy to use, that they can pick up and instantly understand how to work with, and that can be delivered by the cloud. We have to think about things like Wi-Fi in the store, right? We have to make sure that the signal is valid. And I know that systems usually have offline modes and ways to support that. But I mean, it has to work in the parking lot for the curbside pickup. There are so many opportunities for the cloud to better serve these experiences. And in order to do this in near real time, to understand what's really going on, we just absolutely have to have it in a place that's closer to the customer and quicker to respond. So it's a sooner or later thing, may as well not delay. If there's no better reason than that, there you go.
Okay, let me check. I think this was the last question. Yeah, no more open questions unless people want to add one. But so thank you, Emily, and thank you, Nicola, for answering these questions and for sharing your perspectives on these topics. I propose then also to finish this webinar session if there are no more questions. So again, Emily, thank you for your time to walk us through this exciting topic and to clarify whether all retail journeys eventually will end up in the cloud. And I think you gave a good answer to that, or gave an answer to that. And Nicola, also thank you for sharing your views based on your first-hand experiences with retailers across the world. And last but not least, also a big thank you. Thank you to all our attendees for your time and participation in this webinar. And I look forward to meeting you again soon at one of our upcoming events. So, Heather, back to you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining today. All great information. And we will be, of course, putting this replay out there soon. So thank you so much.
Thanks
Have a
so
great
much,
day.
everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.